Hi everyone, my name is Georgina Barquin and I specialize in culture change management in organizations and also managing across borders. So today I would like to talk about something that I find very interesting. This same seminar I've done in Spanish for a Spanish audience, but this time I would like to present the same presentation from two perspectives. It's tips on effective communication when working remotely, doing teleconferences and webinars. But the perspective I want to show you is, well, there's two perspectives here. One of them would be how can you benefit from the information when you're working remotely? And the other one is, if you're working with Spanish-speaking countries, these tips are going to help you very much. Okay, so let's start. This presentation will take about 40 minutes, and I hope you like it. So, time to share the material. Communicating effectively with Spanish-speaking cultures in teleconferences, webinars, and remote work. Well, why is that different? Why would that different speaking to someone from an Anglo-Saxon country, for example? Well, there are a lot of differences. For those who don't know me, I'm Georgina Barquin. As I mentioned, I specialize in culture change management in companies, and I have 17,000 hours of experience training and consulting with executives. So let's go right to it. I'm gonna be about the background, tips for remote work, tips for conference calls and webinars, and I also want to share a mini survey that I undertook here in Spain and talk about some of the questions that people were asking. Our culture will determine what our difficulties are, or what we perceive to be difficulties. So there are several types of cultures. We have task-oriented cultures and we have relationship-oriented cultures. Some cultures avoid uncertainty and others are quite restrictive. But let's look at what it all means. Anglo-Saxon and Germanic countries tend to be task-oriented cultures. And as you know, you tend to separate personal life from work life. So when you're working, you're working. When you're having fun, you're having fun. And even the sayings in English show this. Play hard, work hard, play hard. Task-oriented cultures are also very determined by results. You will be promoted based on your results. And your CV is a document that shows what your trajectory and your results have been. You tend to be punctual, linear, and effective. So maybe for Anglo-Saxon speakers, teleconferencing and working remotely is not that much of an issue, but it is for relationship-oriented countries, basically 3/4 of the world. But I'm going to be focusing on Spanish-speaking countries. Why do I say 3/4 of the world? What does relationship orientation mean? Well, it means that these people love interacting with other people. It's all about loyalty, all about in groups, and they tend to speak in high context. So what is high context? High context is, I don't say exactly what I mean, but you need to look at my body language and my tone of voice, and even my silences will have a meaning. So I may not say much, but through the context, you'll be able to understand, in quotes, what I'm saying. Now, people who are relationship-oriented can speak in high context because they know the members of the group. So just by looking at someone, they already know what's happening. Okay, they usually meet to discuss issues of business, but not to make decisions. Task-oriented people meet up so that they can make a decision and close the decision before they leave the meeting. But in relationship-oriented countries, that doesn't happen. They also like consensus, so meetings tend to be very long. Okay, So that's one part, yes. And relationship-oriented countries find working remotely very lonely and very difficult. Communication tends to kind of break up a lot. And then there's another dimension of culture that is called uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidant countries such as, for example, Spain or Argentina or Greece, yes, they have high uncertainty. Well, they avoid uncertainty a lot. So what is uncertainty avoidance? Uncertainty avoidance is the anxiety felt by people with regards to the future. So in order not to feel that uncertainty, they seek routines. And they have a mind frame of processes, yes? For example, during the year, you have a time for holiday, a time for work, a time for this, and a time for that. You have a lot of routines. Maybe on Saturdays, you go and visit your family members, and you establish yourself personal routines and work routines. Uncertainty avoidant people tend to need all the information before taking any decision. So uncertainty avoidance was a very good thing in the past because it guaranteed survival and linearity. But we're now living in a VUCA world, and obviously things are changing, you know, coming and going. I mean, just look at this coronavirus. It hit us by surprise, in quotes. And then a lot of changes had to be made. But for people with high uncertainty avoidance, changes are difficult. We also have another dimension in culture that is called restriction. Restriction is all the unwritten rules, social rules a society may have. And some countries have way more unwritten rules than others. For example, if you live in a restrictive country, Spain is restrictive, but it's not one of the most restrictive countries. Social rules will determine how you behave in public and even in private. So let's say, for example, that your foot hurts a lot, you have a blister, but you're in the middle of the street. In restrictive cultures, the social rule is you need to look nice all the time. So you wouldn't take your shoe off and go barefoot in the middle of the street until you got to a pharmacy and you could buy something to help your foot. You would just limp until you got to the pharmacy. Also in restrictive cultures, for example, lunch times are very set. The types of food that you can eat at certain times are very set as well. For example, eating a hamburger or having a hamburger for breakfast just doesn't happen because the unwritten rule says that you behave in certain ways. Now, why am I talking about these dimensions with regard to remote work? Well, they affect the way that you communicate. Let's go back to relationship-oriented cultures. Relationship-oriented cultures find working remotely very hard because they can't speak in high context. They need to be much more direct, but they don't have that tendency. And therefore, they're trying to read in between lines where it's really difficult. You can't really do it. On the other hand, uncertainty avoidant cultures punish mistakes. So people don't like making mistakes. They tend to do things the way they've always done them because mistakes are frowned upon. So look at the coronavirus situation where people suddenly had to start working from home and people weren't used to it. Now they start working remotely, they start having teleconferences, but one of the things that happens is that because they're uncertainty avoidant and because they are restrictive, many times they won't put the camera on because they don't want to make mistakes in public or, in quotes, look stupid in public. They have a very acute sense of embarrassment or shame for making mistakes in public. So how to work remotely. I think these tips are going to be useful for any Anglo-Saxon or Germanic person, but also when you're speaking to Spanish-speaking cultures. You need to be even more aware of these when speaking to Spanish-speaking countries. So be friendlier. When you have a screen in the middle and you can't see the person, anything may be misinterpreted. So use conditionals. For example, instead of saying, hey, do this, take the time to write or to say, would you mind doing this? Do you think it would be a good idea? So using in English the would. Now, Spanish speakers, and I'm talking about Spanish from Spain, not Latin American people speaking Spanish, Spaniards tend to speak giving orders. Now, they do it in a very friendly way. So they'll go over to the cafeteria and say, give me a coffee. Yeah, and that's not considered bad manners in Spain. However, and when they start speaking in English, because they're not used to using conditionals, you'll hear them say like, pass me the salt, rather than, would you pass me this, or would you send me this other thing? So don't take it negatively if you're speaking to someone who is a native speaker in English and they don't use conditionals, because there's no bad intention in the way that they're speaking. Ask for clarifications. If you think that the person is being awful or they're wrong in what they're saying, ask for clarifications, because many times we're speaking about something and we to believe the other person speaking about the same thing as we are. Reinforce communication, summarize, and send reminders. Now, why am I saying this? In high uncertainty avoidance, no news is bad news. So it's not like in the United States where no news is good news. So if you don't reinforce your communication, people may feel in Spanish-speaking countries that something's going wrong. Yeah, remember this, no news, bad news. Summarize and send reminders. We're not speaking with the person in front of us. We're not having an emotional impact on the other person, so information may be kind of forgotten. Write a lot of emails with follow-ups. And if you're writing an email to ask about something that happened 3 days ago, rather than saying, so what do you think about what we talked about 3 days ago? Go back to the email, send them that email and say, with regards to what we spoke about 3 days ago, the department selling this, and that, whatever. What do you think? Answer in less time. Latin countries tend to take a little bit longer in answering. So don't be offended if they're not answering immediately, but at the same time, answer as fast as you can, less than 24 hours. For example, I tend to tell my clients that I usually answer within 24 hours, and that if I haven't answered, it could be that the mail went to my spam. So please to write to me again or give me a call. Also, if you've written 2 emails and you're still bouncing information back and forth because there's misinterpretations, pick up the phone and call. Simple language. Use very simple language. For example, English speakers tend to use a lot of phrasal verbs like look into, crossroads, look at, look for. And just the change of a little word means something completely different. But for Spanish speakers, phrasal words are very, very difficult. So simplify your language. Try to, if you can, use Latin-rooted words. So instead of saying, go to the crossroads, say, this is perpendicular to this. Now, the most important thing would be, remember there's a person on the other side. Yeah, we tend to just write it really fast, and so I can get it over and done with because I'm task-oriented. I just want to go. But we do have a person on the other side, and we don't know what their mood is. So the more friendly, or the friendlier we can be, the better. So how do we deal with conferences, teleconferences? Start and finish on time. Yes, you are task-oriented and you tend to start and finish on time. For Latin American countries and Spanish-speaking countries in general, starting and finishing on time is not going to happen. And it doesn't really happen because we are relationship-oriented. What that means is we want to have everybody in the room before we start. We want to chit chat a little bit, kind of build on the relationship. Now, if you're coming from an Anglo-Saxon Germanic kind of culture, yes, start and finish on time, but even though the meeting is going to be an hour, put it in your agenda for an hour and a half so that you don't feel all stressed out because they're not getting in on time. So, for example, when I'm doing teleconferences, in my journal or in my agenda, I will set 2 hours, knowing that I want an hour and a half. Now, that way, I'm not stressed out because I need to finish because I have something else to do. And I can be patient enough to wait for people to join and be friendly. I do start on time, though. Now, initiate with a little chit chat. It doesn't have to be very personal or very intimate. There's a difference between personal and intimate. Intimate is talking about emotions. Personal is just how you doing? How's the situation going? What have you been up to? Hey, what you gonna do this summer? Talk about what the agenda is going to be, and help people when they can interact, because in relationship-oriented countries, they love talking and they're going to interrupt a lot. So, if you make a specific guideline of when it is that they can speak, and don't be afraid to cut them off. Spanish speakers usually have trouble kind of asking others to finish off because they've gone over time. So show yourself on video at the beginning and the end. Why? Because people like seeing people, especially relationship-oriented countries. In Spain, a lot of people are going out at 8 o'clock at night to clap for the doctors and all the people that are helping with the coronavirus. And every day at 8 o'clock, everybody comes out on their balconies or patios or whatever it is to clap. And people have started saying that it's not that well, yes, they are coming out to clap to thank the medical services, but at the same time, they're coming out so that they can see their neighbors. Remember, relationship-oriented. Smile, look good. Now, I know that for example, in the US, people are used to doing teleconferences, and sometimes you get a boss sitting back, arms behind, more or less in his t-shirt or pajamas, kind of, you can see that the background is his bedroom or something. Come on, make it a little nicer. We all like seeing people who dress nicely, smile, and look good. Slide a few points, and then ask a lot of open-ended questions. Open-ended questions will help people participate, because relationship-oriented people with uncertainty avoidance, if you ask a question, maybe nobody will answer. And it doesn't mean that they don't have the question. It means that, maybe they're shy of standing out and participating and looking foolish or making a mistake. So ask open-ended questions and then go quiet. Apart from that, you can, when you've gone into the teleconference and you started chatting to the first people coming in, if you ask a question and nobody answers, then you can actually address these people specifically, because they've already created a little bond with you and they'll be happy to answer. Webinars. Now, I find webinars really interesting. Now, in Spain, for example, a lot of people don't do webinars. We only get to the, what do you call it, YouTubers doing webinars. It's usually really young people who are really good at what they do, but older people find it really difficult. And one of the things with webinars like this one is they won't show their face. So keep the camera on. In my case, I'm using Collaborate Ultra, and when I'm speaking, it doesn't tape me, or at least I don't know how to do it. But so I can show you my face and then show you the PowerPoint. Hey, by the way, if anybody knows how to make it so that Collaborate Ultra will show my face and also the PowerPoint, I would be very thankful if you let me know how. Okay, so keep on the camera, chit-chat to people as they enter. Silences are uncomfortable on webinars. Now, one of the things that happens is that the person who is leading the webinar sometimes needs to upload information or is reading the chat happening, and he tends to go silent. That. This is a person, right? What you do, if you're, for example, reading chat, you say, okay, now I'm going to read the chat. Ah, okay, John, I see that your question is this, and you repeat the question. Because what I've seen a lot is people will read the chat without actually reading the question out loud, so people don't know what's going on. Or if you're going to upload material, say, okay, I'm going to upload the material. Well, oh, I need to look for the file. I don't know where it is. So you keep them busy with sound. Encourage participation through open-ended questions. In relationship-oriented countries, sometimes people find it difficult to stand out. So they won't volunteer information. A way to break out of this is you can create breakout rooms in webinars, send people to rooms to discuss something. So for example, let's say that you're a manager of your department and you have to solve an issue or whatever. Maybe you have your own ideas of how to solve it, but why not send people to breakout rooms, say, hey guys, I'm going to put you in groups. It's going to be random, and you're going to be sitting in those virtual rooms for about 10 minutes discussing this question. And then after 10 minutes, you can come back and we can all share our insights. They absolutely love it. Relationship-oriented countries love it. And then you will have a spokesperson from that specific group, and because he's representing everybody's voice, he'll be happy to share it. You know, it's no longer an individual thing. That's how you can get relationship-oriented people to participate in either teleconferences or webinars. Don't give answers to everything. Again, ask open-ended questions. When I'm doing a webinar, and it doesn't matter if I'm doing it for a company or I'm doing it for a business school, I actually speak 20% of the time. The rest, I have people speak, and it's amazing what they come up with. And I actually just speak to give them either basic theory or basic kind of information. Then I allow them to play with it, think about it, whatever it is. And then when they come in, if there are gaps, I'll fill in the gaps, and that's that. And that makes people feel like they're collaborating and become much more involved. Ask for feedback. You know, a lot of people ask for feedback, especially in high uncertainty avoiding countries. People don't ask for feedback straight out. Why? Because they don't like making mistakes in public. Well, if you make mistakes, make them evident. For example, oh, sorry, there's a spelling mistake here. Oh, I didn't see it. I'm so sorry. When you make your mistakes evident, nobody else is going to make them evident because they're already there and they already know you are aware of it. Use humor. I love humor. Now, humor is very dangerous across cultures, but humor that works is usually silly humor. where you don't make somebody stand out, look ridiculous. You can ridicule yourself, or you can, well, ridicule yourself away, or just, you know, just something about the environment that we all know is funny. Smile, smile a lot. And this is in capital letters. Smile, smile. People can hear your voice. Well, I want to share a little study that I made in Spain, and I'm saying that it's little because only 36 people answered it. I sent out the questionnaire and only allowed people to fill it out in one day, and it was from a Saturday to a Sunday. But I was just curious to see what the outcome would be. And it turned out that the outcome reflects very much so what I've been listening to here in Spain during the transition of people having to work remotely and work with teleconferences and webinars. So that's really interesting. Okay, what you see here. So I said I got results from 36 people. What they said is that 80% of those people are working remotely. About 85% are using video conferences, and only 30% are using webinars. Now, like I say, it is a very small sample, but it does reflect all the conversations that I've been having with over 100 people with regards to working remotely, so forth and so on. So what are the results? Green color is no. Gray color is absolutely yes. And then we have all these little colors over here. And then you have A, which refers to this A, organize myself better. B, I'm autonomous. C, have the necessary, oops, sorry. Oh, spelling mistake. Okay, there you go, mistake. To do my work. D, my company made a smooth transition. E, my boss is available. So what we see over here is, and I'm going to take into account everything that goes under a 6, because if it's under a 6 or under, I consider it a problem. So 40% of people say that they can organize themselves better. That they cannot organize themselves better. Amazing, eh? During remote work. So if 40% of your staff could not organize themselves better, well, you may have an issue there. People, about 30% don't feel they're autonomous in their work. So this may be linked to uncertainty avoidance, you know, not having kind of your little bubble where you feel secure, so therefore you're not feeling very autonomous. Up to 30% feel that they don't have the necessary the necessary tools in Spain to do their work. Maybe because of how fast the government decided that we were going to lock down, and then, you know, people didn't have time to organize themselves, or companies didn't have time to put in place all the necessary tools. D, my company made a smooth transition. Well, almost 40% say that they didn't make a smooth transition. So remember, Spain is high uncertainty avoidance, as many Latin American countries, and you're not making a smooth transition. You don't have the tools, you don't feel autonomous, and you can't organize yourself. Oof, that has some consequences. And then my boss is available. Well, it's only about, well, again, 30% who feel that their bosses are not available. So remember, if you are a boss, try to make the extra effort to be extra available for your people, because otherwise uncertainty is going to increase. Now, with regards to conferences, again, green meaning no, gray meaning absolutely. And these letters here, A, B, C, D, referring to these statements, start and finish on time. So what happens in Spain and Latin America in general terms? Well, you'll see here that 40% say they don't start on time and finish on time because of this relationship orientation I was speaking about. Now, 35% do not feel comfortable in teleconferences. And it could be because they don't know how to use the platforms well, because they don't want to show their faces, because they're relationship oriented and they need that kind of like proximity to people. 40% say that ideas and follow-up are not clear. So they have conferences, but then there's either no follow-up or no clear guidelines or no after conference email stating, okay, as a summary, XYZ, we've decided ABC. So it actually makes people a little bit more confused to feel that there's no follow-up or no clear pathway. I know how to use the platform. Again, 40% don't know how to use it. So, you know, meetings are not starting and finishing on time. People are not feeling comfortable. They believe, 40% believe that the ideas and follow-up is not clear, and they don't know how to use the platform. Woo, that just makes it really uncomfortable. So again, if you are someone's boss, maybe you're the one who has to set the rhythm. Or if you're not a boss, maybe you can propose to the rest of your colleagues that you follow these guidelines so that people feel a little bit more comfortable. With webinars, now, this one really caught my attention because all the educational system in Spain is now working on webinars since the coronavirus. So this is, for me, it's really striking because we're educating children, educating executive learners on webinars, yet we as professors or trainers are having a lot of trouble. Let's look at this because it's really interesting. So 40% had never, no, 60% had of people had never done webinars before. About 30% feel that they don't know the platform well. Again, 30% believe that their companies have not trained them well to use them. 40% or over say that attendees do participate actively. A very big number here, well, 30% say that 30% don't use the camera when introducing or not. Now, I'll make my kind of, I'll share my opinion on all of this in a minute. I create breakout rooms. Well, the greatest majority, over 60%, don't create breakout rooms. And we know that in relationship-oriented countries, creating breakout rooms is going to create a lot of people really wanting to participate, which is going to make it more fun. I ask for feedback. Over or 60% don't ask for feedback. Now, look at this, you know. Haven't done webinars before, don't know how to use the platform well, didn't get well trained by my company, I don't use the camera, and I don't ask for feedback. Now, if you look at 40% are uncomfortable doing webinars, yeah? And 30% say that they don't succeed in making people talk. So, you know, I think we have the tips here on how we can make webinars and telework much easier, especially if we're dealing with companies that are Spanish speaking. So some of the questions that I got from people and they wanted me to discuss is how to break the barrier technology has to generate a more personal interaction. Well, I think I've discussed it already. You know, chit chat, ask for feedback, make your mistakes evident, take 5 minutes to figure out who you have in front, ask people to turn their cameras on. How to obtain feedback in a webinar? Well, when you're in a webinar, you can make a poll. Most webinars will have a little tool that is to create a poll, and you can make a 1 to 5 poll saying, how happy are you with this? And then people will start voting and it's anonymous, for example. Or you can put them in breakout rooms and have them discuss in groups what feedback they would give you, and then have a person, a representative, tell you. That's another good idea. How to make them more participative, as I said, we'll open-end questions or send them out to breakout rooms. How to be more efficient in remote work. Okay, here I would suggest, and I'm not going to do it here, to take some type of time management and organizational skills little webinar or course, and you can find a lot of material on a webpage called mindtools.com. Yes, in Spain they were saying there's a difficulty in setting speaking turns because people speak over each other. That's something that you'll often find, that people are speaking over each other. Now, the one thing that works is have the chairperson be the one who dictates the turns, or use a moderator. Naturally speaking, Spanish-speaking countries, people who are at the same level will not ask others to stop doing things. So they're not going to ask them to be accountable. And how to manage time more effectively. Again, I will not discuss it in this webinar, but there's so many tools that you can use. And one of the greatest tools I can suggest you look into is how to set limits, you know, how to say no. Well, that's all from my side on how to work remotely, do conference calls, and communicate better in webinars. I hope you liked it. Please share it if you think that this may be useful for other people. And this is my contact information, and I'll be doing another webinar soon. So I had to put my glasses on, you know, can't read without them. So anyway, thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.